So what we'll do is we'll just do questions and answers. So anything you'd like to review, um, let's roll. Or any topics. Yes, Danielle.
Like the process of you saying goes through the eye and then back out.
Okay. So the first question is going to be on the transduction in the eye. And this resource I found, which I really liked. This is a mnemonic by Michael Britt. He has a ton of different mnemonics. And the part that I really like here is some of the parts of the eye, but especially the rods and cones, or how transduction happens. So what you need to picture is on the very back of the eye, you do have rods, like fishing rods, and they're usually gray. Okay, so that's going to be the black and white. But here what we're looking at is cones. Okay, and they allow us to see bright colors. And if you can think of a traffic cone, that's a bright color. Okay, so it's going to be the cones. Next, you picture, okay, polar bears for the bipolar cells connect with the rods and cones. So you need to picture polar bears standing on top of the cones, kind of like they would at a circus. And then you picture lions on top of the polar bears, and a gang of lions for ganglion cells, okay, are going to then converge to form the optic nerve. Okay, so again, what this means, okay, is that the photoreceptors are the rods and cones, so those can be used interchangeably. Then the bipolar cells, the photoreceptors activate the bipolar cells, and the bipolar cells activate the ganglion cells, which now it's a neural message.
So the rods don't have anything to do with that?
They do. I didn't see them.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so there's the cones and then the rods. Picture a polar bear fishing? I'm not sure. We could do that.
What would the 5 most important people to know today be?
Yeah.
I don't even know, because there's always going to be someone that's ambiguous. I would say that top, again, with the people, okay, here's my philosophy, is that usually it's going to say the theory. Obviously, sometimes it'll say, like, psychoanalysis was founded by, and then sometimes they'll put something really random, but usually they'll explain the theory and the name together. I would say the top names to know that are going to be most beneficial, definitely Freud. Okay, so Freud founded psychoanalysis. We talked about Freud with personality and treatment of disorders. We talked about Freud in states of consciousness. So he did manifest and latent content and things like that. I would also say Watson. So John Watson is founded behaviorism. So he really is like the swing the other way from Freud, because Freud only wanted to study unconscious processes and Watson only wanted to study behavior. So with Freud and Watson, then what you're going to see is that, or Watson comes around after Freud, and the shift is to behaviorism. So this is going to be anything that's observable, anything that's in the environment. I would tie Skinner in there as well. I honestly don't. I feel like on every practice test, I see a shaping question. Okay, so shaping is when you have the gradual rewarding until you get to the desired behavior. And he came up with the positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and then the schedules of reinforcement. Okay, so that would be another person. I think you're usually, gosh, who else would it be? I think we tend to see, too, something with Elizabeth Loftus. Elizabeth Loftus is a big name for cognitive psychology, specifically memory and memory construction. And then I'd probably say Bandura. We do have 3 from the behavioral perspective, but Bandura did the Bobadal study and is looking at observational learning. So those are, to me, the 5 most important. Again, I'm just trying to generally review because I want you to feel how it's going to feel next week when you go into the AP test. So, yes, Savannah.
I think I saw like one of the practice tests that Loftus was like misinformation effect.
Mhm.
What is that?
So misinformation is going to be, let's say, do you remember the video with the purse snatcher? And I said, what color was the guy's coat? And things like that. So the professor had staged that for a bunch of law students. So this man walked in, stole her purse, and ran out. And then when they're getting questioned, like somebody official comes in, and she says, all I remember is something weird about his nose. And that wasn't true. So that was something that was said, and it was misinformation. And then some of the people, when they were reporting back what he looked like, said he had a weird nose because of that misinformation. It could be something too, like if I were going to have you watch a video and I were to say, what color was the car next to the barn? Well, if there's no barn in the video, okay, so now because of the way I asked the question, you assume there was a barn there, so you may incorporate that into your memory. So she did false memories, memory construction, misinformation effect, things like that. Okay. Anything else? How are you feeling with like methods and bio, memory, thinking, and language? I mean, those are the big units, or anything in social psych. Kayla?
Can you go over the basic memory again?
Sure. Okay, so when we look at the memory information processing, let me just find a picture quick. That'll work. Ooh, okay. So what the information processing model is, I need to make this smaller, hold on. Okay, is that this is looking at how do we perceive or how do we encode memories. So we have our three main types of memory. We have sensory memory, short-term memory, and working memory falls within short-term memory. So they're hard to differentiate, but if I were to say short-term memory is going to be more of information that you can access within that memory, the working memory is when you're problem solving with that memory. Okay, so if I'm like memorizing something or repeating something over and over, I'm trying to keep it in my short-term memory. Once I start actively processing it, that's going to be more working. I think that's really a minute detail. Sometimes they're used interchangeably, but I don't think technically they should be. So we have sensory memory, short-term memory. Your short-term is what you are consciously aware of right now. So I'm going to encode from sensory memory, and I'm also, bless you, going to retrieve from long-term memory. Okay, and whatever's in here is what I'm paying attention to. Then the long-term memory is said to be unlimited storage. Okay, so if it's unlimited storage, then I technically should be able to access anything ever. But we know that we have storage decay and things like that occur. So encoding is getting information in, retrieval is getting information out. And then some things with sensory memory. There's three different types of sensory. We have iconic, echoic, and then haptic. So remember, iconic, I see icons. So I see icons, so that's visual. I hear echoes, so that's going to be hearing. And then haptic is kind of like, all right, so I picked this up and I know how heavy it is. Let's say somebody switched my mug and I thought it was really heavy, and then it feels like it goes flying. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like you think there's more in there, but there's not. So that could be the short term for touch. This one here is it just stores it, and you don't even realize that it stores it because it's an unconscious process happening. So it's kind of like you space out, and then your parent or teacher is talking to you, and they say, "What did I just say?" Then you can repeat back to them what they just said, even though you weren't really listening. Okay, and the reason for that is because of it's recording it. And then the short-term memory, like I said, is the long-term process, or excuse me, is our active process. And then long-term, we have explicit and implicit. So explicit is stored by which part of our brain? Yes, the hippocampus. If a hippo is on campus, he has some explaining to do. Okay, and then Sarah, the ballerina, is impressive. So implicit memory is cerebellum. Cerebellum. So what does this mean? Explicit, and I don't know if they use this much anymore, but I'll tell you anyway. Explicit is our episodic and semantic memory. Okay, so again, it's episodic and semantic. So episodic is like the personal episodes of your life, your personal experiences. Semantic is our general knowledge. So episodic would be personal to you. Semantic would be shared with all of us. Okay, so like the capital of Wisconsin is Madison, 2 + 2 is 4, things like that. Okay, then the implicit memory is also called procedural memory. Anything that's really a verb, I want you guys to think is implicit. So if somebody's running, writing, reading, okay, those tend to be implicit. Yes.
If it's like a memory with a group of people, like
It would still be episodic. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why they kind of just say explicit now. Other questions? Yes.
I want to go over the drugs again. Just
Like what they do?
yeah.
Okay, so with drugs, the big thing here is let's just basically break it down into 3 to 4 categories. So you have the stimulants that have to do with dopamine. So if you can picture somebody selling dope, okay, that's weird, but anyway, it's fine. Picture somebody selling dope, and then it's going to be like an upper, okay? So they're like speed dope. So that's going to be dopamine. The depressants, I really like to think of this guy, the Dos Equis guy. I know that seems weird. Again, I'm getting flagged right now. Just got flagged. Okay. So the Dos Equis guy. So a picture, instead of the 2 X's on the bottle, picture 2 G's. Dos Equis. Really cool. Okay, so what does that mean? GABA and glutamate. Okay, so GABA is our primary inhibitory, so I'm going to, alcohol is going to mimic that or be an agonist, and then it's going to be an antagonist for glutamate. And then the other ones too, which are technically a depressant, okay, so I'm going to do alcohol here, just to add in. And then the opiates. So heroin is going to be endorphins. So heroin, endorphin, okay, are going to be connected. And then which one am I missing? Oh, hallucinogens. We know that one because we got a song. What is it? Serotonin. Yep, there we go. I don't need my voice recorded. Okay, serotonin. Okay, so serotonin is going to be LSD and ecstasy. And then marijuana is really kind of its own separate category. And I don't know off the top of my head how that works.
Would there be like a question on like that AP test of marijuana? I don't think you would, but
No, I wouldn't. Let me look. Let me ask my friend. And, I mean, at least find out, like, how do you, when you're teaching about marijuana, do you do anything? Like, say anything specific. So I'll see if I can find out. Yes?
what does the cortex, cerebellum, and cerebrum?
Okay. And actually, I just thought, I think there are cannabinoid receptors, I want to say. And that's probably not spelled right. It's not. Okay. So I do think we have natural receptors in our brain. Okay, so the next part for the brain, the cerebrum equals the cerebral cortex, or the same thing. So the cortex is all of the lobes. So it's all our higher level functioning. So the frontal and parietal, occipital. And then the cerebellum, was that the other one? Yeah, the cortex is the same as the cerebrum.
Oh,
Yeah, so the cerebral cerebellum. Okay, so if I show you a picture here, okay, so here's a picture of the cerebellum versus the cerebrum. Okay, so the cerebrum is all the lobes, like you can see in this picture. The cerebellum actually means like little brain, and that's at the base of the skull, kind of by the brain stem. So the cerebrum does our higher level functioning. The cerebellum has fine motor movement, balance, and implicit memory. I did want to show you a few mnemonics that I had found. I mean, I'm still adding to these, but I found this, which I thought was kind of cool with trying to remember like experiments and random assignment. Okay, so if you can think of radio, like a experiment with a radio, random assignment, dependent, independent, operational definition. So then that way you know the things that are associated with the experiment. So I liked that one. And then we know the SAME acronym, right? We got that one down. So sensory is the same as afferent. And then here, the afferent neurons are away from the sensory receptors, efferent exit the brain, and then the interneurons are in the brain and spinal cord. We got that already, right? The acetylcholine and Alzheimer's and myelin sheath, multiple sclerosis. Okay, so this one I had found for the brain waves. I know that at a previous, I couldn't remember what stage 1 waves were, and a couple different things were saying alpha and theta. And then I remembered that usually what I do is I say alpha is awake and relax with that AA. So if you can remember this acronym, BATS-D. Okay, so maybe think of having a dream with bats in it. I don't know. Okay. And so the beta waves are wide awake and alert, alpha, awake and relaxed, theta is stage 1. You have sleep spindles in stage 2, and then the delta waves are the deep sleep. Honestly, if I were to guess which 2 you would see, would be spindles and delta.
what stage is delta in?
Stage 3. Yeah. Yep, so this follows the wide awake and alert. So some of you may have some beta waves going on. Some of you may have some alpha. I hope none of you are in theta. That would be really great. Yes?
Could you go over the
Yes, I have it up here. Yes. Only in psychology class. Only in psychology. Okay. So there's that. And this is all posted online too. So, okay. So for amnesia, we have anterograde is when one can't remember anything after. Anterograde is after. And then retrograde, if somebody dresses retro, they're dressing like back in the day. Okay, so this would be before the accident. Here it is. Okay. So proactive is when old gets in the way. So proactive, you remember the old. Retroactive is when new information gets in the way. So I'm going to actually do an example here. So if, let's see, I'm filling out paperwork and my maiden name's Weber Paul. My married name, I moved up. We've talked about this. Okay, so no offense, fam. But so we have Weber Paul and Severson. So let's say I'm filling out paperwork and I have to put my maiden name and I can't remember it. I draw a blank. It takes me a couple seconds. Okay, so we put the P-O here, R-N here. Okay, which one am I forgetting? My maiden name, Weber Paul. So I crossed it out. Okay, so which one am I remembering? Severson. Okay, so I circle that, and that's going to mean it's retroactive. Okay, so I would physically, on every test, write it out, put PORN, cross out the one you don't know, and then you circle the other one, that's your answer. Okay? Okay, so I know this has been another one. I found a couple cool here, cool mnemonics. So stimulate the lateral hypothalamus, rat gets fatteral, like that. Okay. The other thing I liked is in lateral is the word ate, because you're hungry. Okay, so if either of those will help, and then ventromedial is the other one. Okay, so lat, if you use your lat, the rat gets fat. Lateral has ate in it, and because it's hungry. So maybe either of those could work. And then the stress responses are a gas. Okay, so it's alarm resistance exhaustion, and then the general adaptation syndrome. Okay, so you have the phase 1. What happens here is you're not resisting stress at first because our body is meant to go through some stress. Okay, so I mobilize my resources, but then I realize that I get past that point of mobilization. So then the resistance, my body tries to resist the stress response, and then what happens is I get into exhaustion where the reserves are depleted, and that's where we talked about headaches, stomach aches, body aches, suppressed immune system, things like that. So the stress responses are gas, general adaptation. Okay, any questions so far? I did find some cool ones for development too, which I was excited about. Okay, so the schema is a mental construct, and this is Piaget. I feel like we really tend to see these on the test as well. So assimilation, if you can think of SS, which looks bad when it's up there, but it's fine, okay? Assimilation is the same schema. Same schema. So what happens here is I have a picture of a kid, I think it's looking at a cow. Yeah, a book of a cow. It sees a moose and says, cow, cow. Okay, what it did is it fitted into the same schema he already had. What happens then is dad's going to say, no, that's a moose. Okay, so then accommodation happens, construct change in the schema. So now you have one for moose, or you've modified it. Okay, I liked those. And then the other one, I don't know what any of this is. I just left it. I was so excited about this one. Okay, so Piaget's cognitive stages. Some people can fly. Some people can fly. And if you can picture a kids in like Superman outfits, okay, and then all the way up through adulthood. So some is sensory motor, people pre-operational, can concrete, fly formal operations. Okay, so what does this mean? Sensory motor, senses, I learned through senses, so like putting things in my mouth, and then motor, I like to put blocks in holes. Okay, pre-operational is that like 3, 4, 5 age that's super cute, where we did the conservation tasks and they didn't have it, so they poured the water and then they said the wrong one. The little girl that counted the quarters, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one has more because it's bigger. Okay, so those are going to be pre-operational, and that's kind of what I have here. I know you can't see it, but concrete operational, you match the C's, is conservation. Formal operational, where you are now. Think of a formal dance, which is the prom. Obviously, you would go to that. Wow, you can see that really good. Okay, just washed out. This is the one I had been looking for. I knew there was one. Yes, do you have a question?
What are the ages for like the sensory motor?
0 to 2, 2 to 7-ish, 7 to 12, and then 12 plus. But they're not as strict as what Piaget would have proposed. Yes, Kayla.
I was doing a quiz and I found a question and it's about like severing a cat's reticular formation, and it said it would lapse into a coma.
So the reticular formation is, okay, so switching to the reticular formation, if we look at the brainstem. So the brainstem is the the stem, the pons, and the medulla. And actually, that's PMS, pons, medulla, stem, PMS for the brainstem. The reticular formation follows the back, or it's like it goes from the spinal cord into the midbrain or the forebrain. What it does is it wakes us up. So right now, our reticular formation woke up our brain, so we're alert of what's going on. So if we were to sever that, the cat would never wake up. It'd breathe on its own. The medulla's fine, okay? But the brain would never wake itself up because that's what the reticular formation does. Okay. This is the one I'd been looking for. So Baumrein's parenting styles, permissive, authoritarian, and authoritative. So if you get these mixed up, authoritarian is awful nasty. Authoritative is very effective. And then there is uninvolved too. That would just mean there's low love and support and low discipline and expectation. So, I mean, at that point, is the person really parenting? So if they're uninvolved. So I think that's why we tend to just see the permissive, authoritarian, and authoritative. The raw stages of grief, DABDA, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Obviously, there's repetition here. It would make more sense that somebody would first be in shock, so denying it, realizing it's true, getting really mad, realizing the anger is not doing anything, so they start bargaining. That's not going to do anything, so then they have depression or like go through a sadness, depressive state, and then they accept it finally. Okay, so those are going to be the stages of grief. All right, so anything else you want to review or specific questions? Okay. So if you can picture, if we go to Freud's psychosexual stages, there's no not weird way to teach this. So yeah. So this is one I saw. I thought it was okay, so I just decided to put it in there from the top of the head to the bottom of the body. So the mouth is the oral stage. Okay, the butt is the anal stage. Okay, penis, phallic, or just genitals, but that's what penis is a phallus, or phallus is a penis. And then your leg. So leg, you can see I capitalized the L and the G there. So latency and genital stages. Okay, so oral is going to be, if you get fixated, there's a lot of things with the mouth, maybe being really sarcastic, needing to bite their nails. Anal's about control. Okay, so if somebody has type A personality, we'd probably call them anal retentive. And oh yeah, I already said Freud comes up with this theory. I think we're good here. The big five. Wow, you can see that good too. Okay, so openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. I haven't changed all of them yet to the black. Okay. Hold on, I'll do it now. Because I have a couple other on here.
Is this for the Sunday session?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm still working on it. I was working on this yesterday. So, all right. So ocean, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. Yes. I don't know. Don't know. Yeah. I mean, I can look. Yeah. Not Cattell. Not maybe. I really don't know. Yeah. Yes. No. Just want you to feel how it's going to feel next Thursday. You're welcome.
Is today's test like a practice test almost, or is it just like a test you made?
I did not make it.
Okay.
I mean, I did, but it's all AP questions.
So it's like it's like stuff.
Oh, yes.
It's like a practice kind of.
Yes. 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 Okay. But, I mean, I don't want you to go in nervous because remember we had looked at the curve. Okay, so I'm not going to be expecting kids to, I mean, if somebody got in the 90s, I'd be like, holy buckets. Like, that would be fantastic. Okay, my expectation would be that our high score is going to be in the, like, 80%. Okay?
Oh, okay. Cool.
Is it 70 questions?
It's 70 questions. So, yeah, so 80s, I guess, would be percentage. Yeah. So what I'm going to have you do, I don't have anything else here. What I'm going to have you do is today take the 70 questions, and then tomorrow probably take the other 30, so just not as part of a test, okay, but just take the 30 in class. They won't count towards your score, just so you can see, like, this is what my overall, this is how many I got right out of 100. Okay, so anything else you'd like to go over? We do have about 10 minutes.
Can we do like a Kahoot or something?
A Kahoot? Sure.
I think it can.
So the curve is like if you're in the 80s.
80%.
I'd say mid to upper 80s, but yes, it's really good. Oh, yeah. No, that's good too, though. Where's did my screen? I'm like still recording here.